Pedro from A&P-REACTS. I'm here today with Sushi from Ghostkid to talk about his debut record, Ghostkid, out November 13 on Century Media Records. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm really good. I mean, I got a lot of stuff to do right now because to prepare everything and shit. And tomorrow my new single is coming with Johnny Frietius from Hollywood Undead and Timmy Hendrix, and it's called "This Is Not Hollywood," and I'm pretty stoked for this one.
I'm sure you're pretty stoked for the whole album in general. I'm sure you
Yeah, I
can't wait
am.
for this record to come out. But before we even get more into the album, I want to ask you, how did Ghostkid come to life?
Um, I mean, that's basically a longer story, but I try to explain it a bit more short. It came to life. I was a bit unset, or I can say I was not that satisfied anymore. So I mean, things back in the days. I mean, things started to get or turned into a direction where I've not felt that uncomfortable anymore. So I decided, okay, come on, why not doing music on my own again? So picked up my guitar, just wrote a few tracks, or reanimated a track. This was the first track that I ever wrote for Ghostkid, and that I wrote for another band. And things turned out like to the point where I said, okay, I really love what I'm doing right now, and it feels great to do music on my own again. So, and there was this point where I had to decide. So, and I said, okay, this makes me happy. And with this, I can't identify that much anymore. So, yeah, I will go for this one. So, kind of like back to the roots because I just started doing music not as a job, started it as passion. And this is, yeah. Yeah, this is where Ghostkid came to life, basically, I would say.
And how was the creative process behind this album? Were you working on these songs for a very long time, or everything came to you in a very short span of time?
I would say both. I mean, it was everything a bit more intuitive when I wrote the stuff, and there was a lot of stuff I wanted to. I can say where I just talked about. I mean, it was not like okay, I had to think about what I wanted to write. It just um, everything was based on a feeling. So it was pretty easy, for example, to create a base for each song. But after that it was like a fucking long process to finish those songs. And I mean it's even harder if you do it all on your own, because you put a lot of passion in that, and you got a big connection to the song, so you will never get to an end. So even if I listen to the record and I'm fucking proud because I haven't seen that coming, it's for me, it's I'm still I'm still hearing stuff that nobody else will hear. So yeah, I think it is like that. If you really love what you do, there will never be an end, and it's never perfect enough for
I
you.
was going to ask, like, when you listen to the album now, do you feel like, man, I wish I could go back and change this little thing here, this little thing there?
I guess, yeah, if somebody is really really big in your mind and means a lot to you, it's exactly like that. Yeah. I mean, but sometimes you need to stop because there are things that nobody will ever recognize, and you always have to think about, okay, am I the only one that's going crazy right now? And yes, sometimes it's true.
Sometimes
But
it's
yeah,
just you.
it's just me. It's just me because for example, in the beginning we had to rearrange the guitars a bit, and I asked my girlfriend, "Hey, come on, I wanted to show you this song, and I just played it and asked her, and it was start a fight. It was like, tell me what you think. Hmm, it's catchy and it's a bit too long for my taste. And I said, and what about the guitars? And she was like, what guitars? What are you talking about? So I was like, okay, it's just me. I'm getting crazy.
What was the main thing for you, from your perspective, that changed from all the records that you've worked on in the past to this one?
Um, you mean what changed in general when it comes down to the process writing the music,
Yeah,
or
like did you take the same approach? I mean, this is your own baby now, and it's
yeah,
100% on you. So it's not like you can blame this guy or that guy or whoever.
exactly, yeah.
It's 100% you. So do you feel like that changed the way you created, the way you approached it?
I've not expected it would be like that complicated to satisfy myself, to be honest. I mean, it was like a really crazy time. I mean, I changed the approach a bit, and I changed the workflow a lot because I started basically writing the songs based on the vocals. So most of the songs were created by having some kind of a chorus in my head, or I mean, I created all the bases all the bases for the songs by myself, And anytime I hit up the studio for the pre-production, it was like, okay, this song should sound like that, and I wanted to do like this and this and this, And it was really different. I mean, because if you write songs with a whole band or there are a lot of people involved, on the other hand, it could be complicated because everybody got its own taste of music, but if you do it on your own, you have to satisfy yourself and you don't have that influence, So it was a whole new situation for me, I would say.
Very interesting. Were you concerned by the diversity of sound that this record has? I mean, there's no two songs that sound alike, not even remotely alike.
Yeah. I mean, I really focused on that. I'll try to. I really focused on writing each song different. I mean, like I told you before, everything was based more like on an emotional base, I would say, and but I really thought about how I wanted to sound like, what I wanted to represent with the sound and what is my influence. And for me, it was like, okay, it has to sound more dark. It should be dirty and rough, So, and I started writing all this stuff and what I wanted to say as well. I mean, yeah, you're right. Each song is different and got a different character. So, but for me, there were no limitations. I just made a lot of experiments. For example, in Supernova, there's a coffee machine, sent through a guitar pedal. Yeah, so I really tried to make it, each song sound different.
Do you feel like this album is a representation of you as the person or you as the artist?
I would say both. So, for example, Ghostkid, I mean, you can see it as some kind of a solo project. So I would say Ghostkid is maybe like an alter ego, which is representing what I'm thinking about and my emotions, So even if not all the tracks are telling a personal story, each track is telling minimum like personal thoughts of myself, And it was like a whole crazy process because some songs made sense after a while. So I wrote that song and never understood like what I tried to tell with that song, And after a while, it made sense. So it was kind of a magical feeling, even if it sounds a bit cheesy. But this is what it was. So I would say yes, it's both. Like me as
I can see where you're coming from. When I was listening to the album, I felt that I was traveling through your brain, and every song was a pit stop in a part of your brain. So
yeah,
as traveling and as I'm seeing a little bit of who you are as a person and an artist, each song kind of gives me a glimpse of that piece where I'm stopping along the way. And that's what makes the diversity what it is. But at the same time, it all made it you because it's all you.
yeah. I mean, like I said, minimum, there are some thoughts that I got in my head, about different topics that I wanted to talk about. But in general, I could say overall, it's like a really personal record where I'm just talking about my feelings about different situations I was confronted with. And yeah, you're right.
Do you feel like it's necessary to define the band, to define the sound on this album? Or you like to leave it open-ended? Because normally when you talk to metalheads or when, it's always like this, there's almost this driving force that wants to put an album or a band into a genre. You want to fit it somewhere. And I found with Ghostkid in this record, it's impossible to fit you into a genre.
Yeah, that's perfect. No, I mean, that's always like a really huge topic to talk about. I mean, I would say it's up to the people because for me, when I started writing those songs, and I mean, I got in an early stage, I really got a lot of songs, like 8 songs or something like that. And I were showing it to my friends and asked, so what kind of genre is this? And everybody said, hey, we don't know. There is a little bit of everything inside. And this was for me, okay, perfect. I will never ask you again. But yeah, I think it doesn't matter which kind of genre or music it is, I mean, overall it is hard music, and I think it's much more important that an artist is telling a story that people that people can relate to, you know? So it doesn't matter which kind of genre it is. So I'll let the people decide what this is.
Vocally, I felt that the album was very diverse as well. Was that important for you to add diversity to the vocals as much as diversity already exists in the sound?
Um, yes, I think so. I mean, I like it crazy, so I really liked to experiment with my voice as well, you know. And I mean, okay, you got the screams and you got the singing, but at this time, I tried to do the screams as well a little bit because it don't has to be perfect. It just have to um, just need to have some kind of character, you know. So and yeah, I did a lot of experiments though. So I mean, when it comes down to all the parts, I mean, like the vocals, like the guitarist, and I mean, yeah. So I really tried to achieve a different sound for every story basically on each song, you know?
You also had quite a few guests on the record,
Yeah.
and perhaps one of the ones that surprised me the most was Miles Petroza from Creator. I was not expecting to see that
Yeah.
on the list.
Mhm.
Uh, how important was that for you to have some guests on this album, on this debut album?
I mean, really important because for me, it's always interesting if you got a track and you pick up an artist that usually is doing different music. It's always like a big plus because sometimes it turns out absolutely great. And I mean, that song where Miller is on, you know, this is like a song which is not typical for him. And the story started where I was in Berlin and we are good friends, you know. So he called me and said, "Hey, we are recording chorals right now for creators. So don't you want to come over?" And I said, "Okay, let's go," you know. And then I talked to him and said, "Dude, I got this one track. So what do you think about to do something like a feature? Let's give it a try, you know." And he came to the studio, and it turned out absolutely amazing, you know. And this is what I really loved about that, to hear him on a record or on a song that is completely different to what he's usually doing, you know. And yeah, this is like everything came together.
Yeah, it adds a different flavor. I mean, I feel like if
Yeah,
you ask people who are more within that sound, then it's more expected. When you have these cameos that completely come out of left field that nobody's expecting, it adds a completely different flavor to how the song comes together.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it's always a big plus, and I really love it too, to have different voices, you know, and different artists to see how they will interpret the song.
Is there somebody that you haven't worked with that you would love to have on the next Ghostkid record?
That's a really good question. I mean, there are a lot of great artists out there who are really inspiring, you know. So I would love to have Youngblood probably, but just that he's just screaming, you know, not singing because he's doing it way better than me. So I would be ashamed. No, I'm just kidding. No, but that would be interesting, you know. I mean, I really love this guy. I really love what he represents in general, you know. But dude, there are so many great artists out there. I mean, the list is pretty long, but the biggest problem is to get those guys to reach out to them. So yeah, but yeah, I would say this. I would say him probably. Yeah.
Is there a song on this record that made you pull your hair out? Like they gave you extra difficulties to finally. I know we already talked about how picky you are, but was
Yeah.
there a song that really drove you nuts?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. It was the ballad, like Cold Word in the end. I mean, you know.
Cold War, by the way, is one of my favorite tracks on the record.
Oh, really?
I
Thank
love
you.
that track.
This was, I
Like
guess,
even
this,
it's not only it's a ballad, but you stripped it down. The vocals are outstanding on that track because the vocals carry the track. The vocals are the track.
thank you. Really appreciate that. That means a lot to me. But for example, this is like a track, you know, where listening to and say, "Oh, damn, there is this one note that is a bit weird and stuff." But this track really drove me nuts. You know, it was the last track that was meant to be recorded in the studio, and I guess it was the second track that I wrote in Berlin, and it was like, okay, in Berlin you got the vibe for a ballad. Okay, get a bit drunk, you know, just put on the piano and all right, come on, let's tune it. It's just a pre-production, and it worked, you know. So and then you go to the studio, and it's really hard to sing, you know. And then it's like, okay, boom, you have to recreate that. You have to feel it even more than the day than when you was in Berlin, you know. And I was sitting in the vocal booth, and we're screaming and yelling because I was so pissed. It wasn't, it was really that, it wasn't that easy, you know. I mean, it was not easy to recreate it, and was much more difficult to make it even better, you know. This song really drove me nuts. Yeah.
Well, the final result is outstanding. So,
Thank you. Thank you.
so it was worth all the hard work that you put into it, because it's definitely one of my favorite tracks on the record. Another track that I really enjoyed was "You and I."
Oh,
It's just such a strong track. What was the behind the scenes on that song?
this is like a really interesting story, because this was a track I originally wrote for another band, and the band split up, and I took the song with me because I always loved it, you know. And this was the first track that I ever worked on for Ghostkid. So this was a little bit like a magical moment for me, because I just wrote down some lyrics, and never really understood what the song was about, you know. And the day before we recorded this song, like in the final, we did the final lyrics on that one, um, or the final recordings. It was like, okay, do you got the lyrics prepared? And I said no, but I will write something down. And this was like an instant moment where everything made sense. So I knew that I wanted to write something like a symbiosis between two persons. But this song is actually about my dad, basically, because he had a really bad heart attack a few years ago, and there was the situation where somebody is in the coma, and you are standing next to the bed and still try to lead or to help this person through those dark times. You know this person won't see you, probably won't hear you, but you can still give support, and this is like where everything made sense. So this song really means a lot to me, because it got really a personal story behind that, to help a person through those dark times. And yeah, I would say that's the story behind You and I.
Yeah, it's a very powerful track. I felt musically was powerful, lyrically was powerful, and your delivery as far as vocals are concerned added to that
Thank you.
whole. Let's put it this way, it was a very emotionally driven track.
Yeah, it is exactly. I mean, after I got the topic for that song and I understood it, so it was easy to finish that track, because I talked a lot to my dad about that time, and he said a lot of things. And of course, he was scared. Even if he was in this coma, he got some crazy dreams and stuff. And it was a really hard time, to be honest. And for me, it was like that whole feeling, because every time you just have to function every fucking day to show to help. I mean, and I would say, even if you're not in the coma, you're just feeling a little bit the same, like, because I mean, you're together. You try to make it through those times together. And this is where the song is about.
Wow, really interesting. It's funny because for me, I felt the emotional impact of the track without even knowing the story behind the track.
Yeah.
So that just tells me that you deliver the song perfectly, because you're able to
Oh, thank
transfer
you.
that emotion that you had when you created the song to the listener who doesn't even know about the story behind it.
Thank you. I really
I
appreciate
think
that.
all of that nitpicking that you put into the record, I think it was worth it.
Thank you. It was a lot of work.
Yeah, you second guessing yourself. Actually, sometimes it worked a little bit in your favor in this case.
Um, one more time, sorry.
No, I was just saying, like, you second guessing yourself and going through the tracks and really picking all the details of it. I think in the end it worked out in your favor.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, even if I still find some spots, I really love this record, and I can't wait to drop it. So what should I say?
Yeah, I have one more question for you, and that is, after you finish this record, and now that the album is coming out on November 13th,
Yeah.
what do you feel like you learned about yourself during this experience that you didn't know that you had it in you?
I think the first and most important thing that I learned about myself is that I'm capable doing music on my own. I mean, I've back in the days where I was young and I was a guitar player, I wrote a lot of tracks, you know, and I was practicing a lot of on my skills and stuff, you know, but I guess I never had that moment in life where I really finished something like a record on my own. I mean, if you're playing a band, there are six people who are working together on that thing, but this time I ever got the feeling, hey, damn, I just wrote a fucking record on my own. I mean, even if there have been a lot of people been involved, you know, uh, it was basically like building up like this whole thing, and it turned out great. And I think this is like this is what I really learned about myself. That um, I mean, I got a lot of doubts in the beginning, and I haven't seen that coming. That I really would have like 10 tracks on a record, you know, that I'm ever gonna finish this record, you know, and this is such an amazing moment for me to see, okay, it's done.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
It's almost here.
Yeah, it is, and that's great. I mean, this is what I learned about myself, that yeah, that I can write a record. I mean, I don't know. The people have to decide if it's great, but I'm really proud. I'm really proud that this is done, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I hear you. I
Yeah.
hear you. At the end of the day, you're proud of what you did, and then if people like it or not, that's on each person individually to decide.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, it really means a lot to me, like the whole record. And but yeah, I mean, it's about personal taste, so you can't tell if the people will like it or not, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Well, thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Once again, Ghostkid debut record comes out November 13th on Century Media. Thank you for your time. It was an absolute
yeah.
pleasure chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Take care.
You too, Emil.